What's up guys, this is Nishi here, and today I want to have a discussion with you guys about the upcoming Gold Sarcophagus Mega Tins that will be released at the end of next month. Ever since they changed the way that Mega Tins are done, it's become riskier and riskier to hold on to cards from core sets. Reprinting most of these cards, as well as providing the incentive of promo cards, definitely makes the cards a lot more accessible to players, and it encourages them to buy the Mega Tins as product. But at the same time, it means that cards from core sets are less likely to retain value over time. When cards get reprinted, they tend to drop in price, so a lot of players try to sell their cards earlier before the reprints come out, and this increase in supply actually results in the prices dropping pretty substantially. So this year's no exception. We have 4 sets with cards that are going to be reprinted in this year's Mega Tins. We have Flames of Destruction, Cybernetic Horizon, Soul Fusion, and then Dark Saviors. This year's a little bit weird because it's the first time we've had a side set featured in the Mega Tins like this. I think that ultimately this was done to allow the cards from Savage Strike to hold their value for a little bit longer, because I feel like Konami probably thinks that Savage Strike and the Mega Tins would have been released too close to one another, especially with 2 really big cards in that set in Phantasme and Pot of Extravagance. Maybe those cards are going to be reprinted elsewhere, or maybe we're going to have to wait a really long time until the next year's Mega Tins in order to get access to those cards. So one other thing that Konami's introduced in order to kind of shake things up a little bit is they're changing the rarities around. So we're not 100% sure of if commons are going to potentially be printed as holos, but what they're saying is that if a card was previously rare, it could be printed as super, ultra, or secret rare now. If it was previously a secret, it might be printed as a rare, super, or ultra now. And this is really big, right? Because in terms of people who want to purchase certain cards, one, there are a lot of players who only want to purchase like the original print of a card. So this actually makes it a lot easier to tell now versus before. You know, if you wanted to purchase a Saryuja, you had to look at like the set code and the card number, and because both copies were secret, now it's going to be a lot easier to tell. And at the same time, you can also match the rarities to the rest of your deck, right? Like some people like playing only in secret rares. Like I love secret rares, I love the way they look, and I would love it if I could play my deck full of secret rares only. So it gives players a little bit more versatility in terms of like the aesthetic when they're building their decks. So yeah, what I want to do in this video is go over the cards that have retained some value and look a little bit at what's going to happen to these cards and these card prices over the next like month and a half, 2 months, because these Mega Tins are going to come out. I dug through each of these sets, and I'm just going to be going over the more notable cards. Like personally, I don't think that anyone's going to be super bummed out if like Super Team Buddy Force Unite gets reprinted, unless you are hoarding that, in which case, sorry. But like even if it did get reprinted, there's not much value to be lost there because it's such a cheap card. But yeah, this is like purely for you guys to know as players that may like be holding these cards around, that you aren't necessarily using. Now would actually be like the perfect time for you to move them while they still have some value. So I've actually split this video up into 2 parts. In the first half, we're going to be looking at the first 2 sets, so Flames of Destruction and Dark Saviors. And then in the next video, we are going to be looking at Cybernetic Horizon and Soul Fusion. So please be sure to stay tuned for that. And yeah, let's get started. Alright guys, so first up we have Knightmares. I actually consider these cards to be like extra deck staples because so many decks play them, and they're just like really good generic spot removal that like most extra decks should have available. So Unicorn is probably the most notable one here because it's the expensive secret rare, sitting at around $25. Griffin isn't really used. It's only like used in very niche circumstances in very niche decks, so it's like basically one of the cheapest secret rares in the set at only around like $3 to $4. However, Phoenix and Cerberus are both only super rares, but they hold like a good amount of value. Phoenix is the one that's worth a little bit more, around $4, and Cerberus is still worth a couple of bucks. But I feel like these cards are primarily holding value because there's only the one printing of them, despite how good they are. So I think that when they are reprinted in the Mega Tins, they're going to drop a lot in price, especially these originals. Phoenix and Cerberus should go down to only like $1 or $2. Griffin should only be like maybe $1. If Phoenix or Cerberus get printed as secret rares, I can see those versions worth being around like the $4 to $5 range. But if that's the case, like I definitely see either way. The Super's original prints are going to actually drop quite a bit. Unicorn's the last one, but it's already dropped like really significantly. We saw Nightmare Unicorn peak at like around that $45 to $50 price range, and it's still like a really strong card. It's just that everyone's expecting it to get reprinted, but like regardless of the rarity that it's reprinted in, it'll be a lower rarity than the original. So in that regard, like the original is still going to hold a bit of value. It's just difficult to say how much. Probably like if the reprint is like only a super, I think the secret would still probably hold around like a $10 to $12 price range. But like it's kind of hard to say. Like this is kind of unprecedented, right? We've never had the Mega Tins change things up like this before. So overall, like I'd say hold on to one copy of each Phoenix, Cerberus, and Unicorn, especially if you're going to be playing competitively like at a regionals or something. And I would absolutely sell all extra copies while you can. I mean, if you're not going to be playing over the next month or next couple months, and you don't make the cards ever because of what deck you're playing, then I'd just go ahead and sell them now. The other thing that I would want you to take into consideration is that because of how staple these cards are, there's a very good chance that they're going to be reprinted again in Dual Devastator. So that's just like something else that I think you guys should be cautious of. Okay guys, so next up we're going to talk about some of the miscellaneous cards that are going to drop a lot in price after the Mega Tins come out, just because these cards only have like one printing. So, you know, like the first widely accessible reprint for a card is generally going to be the thing that drives down prices the most. So I think that these are cards that I would certainly try to move as soon as possible and not hold on to. So first up we have Topologic Trisbana, which is something that's only seen like very, very niche uses in the meta. I think it was an option in like Sky Strikers or really, really early variants of Orchist. But really, I think it's just like an okay cover card that had to hold some value because it was theoretically like a potentially really strong card. But ultimately, it's going to get destroyed in value when the Mega Tins come out. Right now, it's sitting at around $5. But I'm fully expecting the price to drop all the way down to like being $1, maybe $2. Next up, we have Nightmare Corruptor Ibli. This card actually saw a lot of hype when people were first talking about Orchis and Nightmare as an engine, and this card actually jumped all the way up to like $40, $45. However, the card hasn't seen too much play, and it's tanked all the way down to like 15. I remember before, like during Spiral format, the card was like a one of, and it was just like a brick, right? And typically cards like that, they lose a lot of value after being reprinted once. However, I would keep in mind that the card could see some relevance again if we see that Orchis Nightmare engine get hit and be forced to adapt in some way. I don't know how exactly that would be, depending on the hit, obviously. But like as is, I think that when the card gets reprinted, it's going to be like at most a $5 card. Next up, we have Vampire Sucker, and this is a card that saw like quite a bit of hype. When the card came out, it was initially like around that $10 to $12, maybe $15 price range. Then it jumped up to like $20, $25, and it's currently back down to around $15. Zombie decks in general have never really gained any traction in the TCG. Like there's been the odd top here or there, but nothing like really game changing. So I do expect that like when this set comes out, Vampire Sucker is going to drop a lot in price. It's probably going to retain some value because it's like the secret rare, so it's the highest print version, and the card features a girl on it, so there's going to be a lot of guys who like cards like that who are going to try to pick this up. And I mean, zombies are a pretty casual player friendly archetype, right? Like a lot of the cards are super cheap to pick up, so in that regard, Vampire Sucker is still going to retain some value, but definitely it's not going to stay around $15. It's more likely going to be around $5. And finally, the last card here is Altergeist Multi-Faker. It's the one card in the Altergeist archetype that actually hasn't been reprinted. After this, like the Altergeist deck, it's going to be really cheap. I don't expect Multi-Faker after the reprint to be more than $1 or $2, the same way that like Melusine and Marionetter currently are, assuming that the deck doesn't get hit. So it's going to be like an extremely budget option. for a lot of players. I mean, even right now, Multi-Faker is only like a $5 card, but the reprint just means that it's going to be more accessible. There's going to be a lot more quantities available on the market. All that being said, like, I want to include this here. There is a possibility that some of these cards aren't going to be reprinted in the Mega Tins. This is pretty unlikely, right? Because I went through, and these are the cards that still have some value that I'm covering in this video. So it's pretty unlikely because Konami's going to want to include the more expensive, pricier cards in the Mega Tin in order to incentivize people to buy product. But one thing that you should note, if the card, for whatever reason, isn't included in the set, then I would definitely expect these cards to jump up in price after. Alright, and finally, from Flames of Destruction, we have 2 more cards that have actually already been reprinted in dual power. So this isn't going to be the first time that they've been reprinted. So the price drops probably aren't going to be as significant as the other cards we talked about, or as they were before this reprint. Heck, there's actually a pretty decent chance that these cards aren't going to be included in the Mega Tins, but for the sake of being thorough, we're still going to talk about them here. So Ghost Bell, the original Secret Rares are going for around like $12 to $15 a piece. I'm personally a really big fan of Secret Rares, so this is my favorite version of the card. Honestly, I don't think that the price is going to drop too much from here. I mean, like, all of these hand traps, they feel kind of like staples. They fluctuate in play depending on the format, and this is still the original highest print of the card, and therefore I think that the price is actually going to remain pretty steady. However, I think that the dual power ultra rare version, I'm expecting that to drop a bit. Even now it's only like $4. I think it's probably going to stay around there, maybe drop $1 or $2. The other thing to remember is that it does have a confirmed reprint in Dual Devastator this fall, so all copies of it outside of the original are going to drop a lot, right? So when Dual Devastator drops, even if this gets reprinted, the reprint is still going to tank in value even further. We can look at Ash Blossom as an example, right? So Secret Rare First Ed like Ash Blossom still retain, like, even to this day, like, quite a bit of value, and then it was reprinted as an ultra rare in Kaiba Collection. It was reprinted as a super rare in Shadows of Valhalla, and those values, those cards still retain value. And then finally, when the card got reprinted as a common in the structure deck, we saw all of those like super and ultra rare reprints drop in price a lot, and I think it's going to be very, very similar price action here with Ghost Bell. The other card, of course, is Infinite Impermanence. The original Secret Rares actually are currently around $45 to $50, depending on if you're looking at unlimited or first edition printings. And the ultra rare reprints are going for around $30. I think that this card is like the new Ash. I am predicting that this card isn't going to be reprinted in the Mega Tins, and that Konami is going to hold off, short print it in another set, milk its value a little bit more, and then make it widely accessible. Because look at how many players are going around looking for Impermanence. It's such a key card in the format. However, if it does get reprinted here, I think that the original Secret Rares are still going to be worth a fair bit, because remember, if it does get reprinted here, it won't be as a Secret Rare, it'll be as a rare, super, or ultra. Rare would be like really weird, but whatever. I don't think that that's going to cause too much of an influence on the price of the Secret Rare. However, I would expect the dual power ultra rare copies to drop down to that like $15, maybe $20 price range. Okay guys, so next up we're going to talk a little bit about Dark Saviors. This is where the Mega Tins really caught everyone off guard, because this is the first time that we've had a side set included in the Mega Tins. There are obviously some cards that were short printed in the set, and those are primarily the cards that we're going to be talking about here. However, this is going to be a little bit difficult, right? Because first up, we have Sky Strikers, and I haven't included the prices here on the slides because this video is actually going to be coming out at around the time that Battles of Legend is dropping, so the prices are naturally going to be fluctuating just a little bit. Yes, I know I was wrong. Engage reprints are actually a lot cheaper than I was expecting. They're currently around $12 on TCG Player. Widow Anchors are around like $9 to $10, and Afterburners actually got reprinted as only an ultra rare, so it's like less than $1 or something. The Mega Tin reprints of these cards are only going to tank these prices even further. Although, as I said in the last video, like, it depends a lot on the ban list, right? So does Engage stay at 3 and multi-roll get banned, or does Engage get hit in some way? However, I think it'll be really interesting because these cards are actually going to be printed as something other than secret rares, right? I actually think it would be absolutely hilarious to see the entire Sky Striker deck come out as commons in the Mega Tin. I think that'd be really cool, and I would play that deck like crazy then, just to troll people. But I mean, like, that's probably just me. But yeah, so regardless of like the rarity in the Mega Tins, I would expect the original prints from Dark Saviors to still hold like some value, probably close to what the Battles of Legend reprints are right now. So I'd expect the original ones to be like 10 to 15, maybe $20 for Engage, Widow Anchors at around $10. But then I would also expect the Battles of Legend reprints to tank down really, really low. So like both Engage and Widow Anchor down to like maybe $5 a piece. Okay, so now we're gonna take a look at for hires. I really like puns. So when this archetype name was announced, I was like really, really happy. Kind of like Zodiac when it first came out. I was just like, wow, this is great. But yeah, so this archetype has two cards that were short printed originally in Dark Saviors, those two being Beat Bladesman for hire and Mayhem for hire. This deck never really had any influence on the competitive meta. It was like a cute deck that could swarm the field, but like a single Veiler or Ash could like kill the entire deck. It was like super dependent on that first monster effect going through. So it's all like a bit of hype when the for hire Link monster was announced, but that's about it. Anyways, Beat peaked at around $15, but now it's currently sitting at around $9. And Mayhem for hire used to be like an $8 to $10 card, and now it's around $5. I think that after these reprints, these cards are both going to tank drastically. I don't really see each copy being more than $1 or $2. Either way. Like, that being said, I think there's going to be a lot of people who want to play the deck for fun because it's going to be a very cheap, fun, entertaining archetype that a lot of casual players are going to want to mess around with. But like, unless the deck sees some new support coming soon, I don't really see it retaining much value here. The other thing is that like pretty much all of the cards from the archetype are included in the Dark Saviors set, right? So like Raphael, Wiz, and then like Recon and like a bunch of the smaller guys. So hopefully all of those are also included in the Mega Tins. I don't really know, like, because they were supers originally, but it's from an all hollow set. So are they going to be treated as commons in the Mega Tins or hollows? That we don't really know. So if they are treated as commons, maybe like cards like Raphael or Wiz, like those cards that you play one or two of, maybe they'll retain a little bit of value if the reprints are only included as commons. So that's something to keep in mind. If you are looking to play a hollow version of the deck, maybe you want to hold on to a couple copies. Like, I mean, like Raphael and Wiz and like those cards are super cheap anyways, so they're probably pretty safe for you to like keep. I wouldn't worry too much about selling them if this is a deck that you want to play in the near future. Okay guys, so something else that I wanted to just tack on to the end of the discussion of like Dark Saviors cards. Vampire Fraulein is one card that is included in the set that was like a little bit pricier. Maybe like half a year ago with like that zombie structure deck coming out, we saw Vampire Fraulein jump up to like $4 to $5. It is the best, like most expensive card in the vampire archetype, and it's good like generic zombie support, so it being reprinted I guess is like a good thing for casual players. But like a lot of cards in this set I feel are going to be filler. There's a lot of like secret rares from the vampire archetype, and then there are a lot of cards that are secret rare from like Sky Strikers that aren't necessarily short printed, right? So we have like Shark Cannon or multi-roll that are secret rares, but they weren't short printed, right? So they're not necessarily cards that were like super highly sought after. And then there's a lot of super rare cards. They're technically hollows. Are they going to be reprinted and taking up like secret or ultra rare slots in the Mega Tins as well? If they are, I mean, that would be kind of unfortunate, right? Because like a lot of those cards aren't really highly sought after, and it's something that I would kind of like think about before I decide to invest in these Mega Tins. One last like kind of minor note that I do want to include is that Allure of Darkness has had like, I swear, like 15 different printings, and like all printings of it are all still worth like $1 or $2. But Allure of Darkness was included in Dark Saviors, so depending on how they treat it as a super rare, we could see another Allure of Darkness reprint. It could be another common one, even though we've had like 6 common structure deck printings, and they're all still like $1 or $2. Or we could finally see like secret rare Allure of Darkness. Who knows? But yeah. Alright guys, so that's it for the first half of our Megatin discussion. Megatins are definitely kind of like a mixed bag for players. On one hand, it's good that there are a lot of reprints each time, like a lot of good cards being reprinted. Cards that are in demand that a lot of players want to pick up. But at the same time, there's a lot of cards that are dropping in price, so it can be a really scary time for players that have invested like a significant amount of money into the game. The best thing I think that you can do is to be diligent, especially during reprint season, right? Like, don't hold on to more cards than you need, or I mean, like, if you're going to be willing to risk losing some of that value. Anyways, the second half of this video will probably be posted like tomorrow, so be sure to subscribe if you haven't already so that you can be notified when the video comes out. I hope that this video has helped you out in some way and that you're able to make your Yu-Gi-Oh playing experience a little bit less expensive because of it. I know that's a tall order. But anyways, be sure to thumbs up this video, and also, leave me a comment down below about, you know, things you like about videos like this or what you don't like, so that I know and can hopefully incorporate some of your feedback into future videos. So yeah, until next time, don't forget to hold on to your MST.TV.